In the studio, another very special guest, getting to know Dennis Grode. He's with Washington Praise and a national movement called America Praise, and just talking to him before we went on the air here about his heart for prayer. Dennis, welcome to the station.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks for allowing me to be here.
You were a part of this recent 100 Days of Prayer.
Yes.
That happened and culminated here a couple of weeks ago. But you continue with Washington Praise. Tell us a little bit about what this is.
Yes. Washington Praise is affiliated with America Praise, and it's I guess you could call it a movement of churches that are praying locally in a community for their community ongoing, kind of similar to what the National Day of Prayer does, but I would say it's kind of like the National Day of Prayer on steroids.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I share with pastors, quite honestly, that the National Day of Prayer, as wonderful as it is, it's a great thing. I support it, but I really think the Bible teaches that we're to be praying ongoing for our communities, like in Luke 18, day and night. And I think part of that is following 2 Timothy to pray, as it says, to pray for all people and all those in authority so that we can lead godly, peaceable lives, as we know God our Savior wishes all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth.
Mm-hmm. Well, people sign up. So how does it take us through this? People can sign up at the website to sign up for a particular day or an hour that they can get their church involved in praying? Or how logistically, how does this work?
Logistically, we are not the most technologically organized organization, but simply what they can do is they can contact myself locally, or even the national website, and they'll get a message to me. But essentially what we try to do is encourage churches to take one day a week, because many times churches have a rhythm of prayer already going, or to take a day a month just to pray specifically for their community, to pray, first of all, for the church itself, for unity and for holiness, and to pray for families, marriages, to pray for the lost by name, to pray for the city officials by name. And we believe that a praying community, it's kind of like a rising tide. It raises all boats, gives opportunity for the church to have an effect and to really carry out the mission of going and making disciples of all peoples in that community. And we've seen things happen in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We've seen things happen.
Like what kind of things?
Well, for instance, America Praise was started by Brian Alred back in 2017, and it started with him being convicted that God had asked him to encourage. He was working as a local pastor. He was working for the Billy Graham Association, and God put on his heart to do 24/7 prayer. And he remembered, saying, yeah, I'll do it. And then later, kind of a personal crisis with his daughter prompted him to fulfill that promise. He found himself in a hospital room, having heard some bad news about his daughter, about her medical condition. He and his wife were there, and his wife looked at him. She says, "I'm sorry, honey, but I've got to go teach my class down at the community college." He was a local professor, and so he found himself in this room, kind of discouraged. And the Lord reminded him that he had promised to start 24/7 prayer. So they started it in 2017, and within a short period of time, within a year, they had over 200 churches praying. And probably the best way, I probably won't do it justice, but after about a year of prayer, they began to see some things change in their community, some of the economics and so on and so forth. But they started 24/7 prayer in 2017, and they saw a major difference happen in their community, just among the people, amongst the economy, amongst crime being reduced, all kinds of things. And that's why I say when a community of churches begins to pray in a city, you will see all kinds of good things happen, things that none of us can take credit for because of the fact that God's people prayed.
Yeah.
And his basis for starting America Praise was he remembered back in Bible college that the Moravians, this little group of people in Hermhut, Germany, had started to pray. And they prayed not just for a few days, but for 110 years.
110 years?
110 years, 24/7, at least two people praying. And over that time, the first 65 years, they sent out over 300 missionaries, which is more people than what they had in the church all around the world. That's how the Wesleys were saved by the Moravians, and some of the Great Awakening that spilled over into America through Charles Finney.
Founded America.
Exactly. And so some of those things, we know that when there's a revival that takes place, it's always preceded by prayer. And so really our heart is to see churches taking a day specifically to pray for their communities. And they can contact me, they can contact America Prays, and we can help them get it started. We can help them connect with churches that are already doing it, the best practices, and so on and so forth. But I'm just here to serve the church in the state of Washington. I serve as a local elder at a church in Bothell. Canyon Hills Community Church.
Canyon Hills Community Church. Well, we'll find out more about how to contact you here in just a moment. I was really encouraged by the story you gave me from Luke 18. Tell us a little bit about the principle of Luke 18.
Yes, it's an amazing. The first portion of that passage, Luke 18, is specifically about prayer, where Jesus tells them, he says, "I'm going to tell you a story so that you will always pray and not lose heart." And of course, then, if you're familiar with the story, he tells the story about the widow and the unrighteous judge, where she goes to him seeking justice, and she perseveres, continually going to him, and he didn't fear God, he didn't fear man, and yet after a period of time, he realized this woman is probably she's going to wear me out, so I'm going to give her what she wants. And so the first, I think, principle there in that passage is about the perseverance in prayer, and that's where I think we're at as a country. We have not, and as it says in James, because we've asked not. And I believe God is waiting for his people to pray. And the second part of that is when Jesus talks about that, and he says, "See what the unrighteous judge says. How much more will I give my beloved, my people, how much more I will answer their prayer, and I'll do it speedily if they cry out to me day and night." He's talking about prayer, sacrificial prayer. You can say it's 24/7 prayer, or you can just say it's sacrificial prayer. And what I share with pastors and churches is that even if your church is 40 people, if it's 50 people, obviously you probably won't do 24/7 prayer. We'd love it if you could, but let's just say you have 10 people that are intercessors in your church and they pray for an hour. It's really the spirit of the thing, the spirit of God's people praying, asking God for justice. And he says he'll give it speedily. But then at the end of the parable, he has that question. He says, "But when I come, will I find faith? Will you believe me?" So it's just a principle of trusting God. Jesus, it was the only thing that the disciples asked Jesus to teach them was how to pray.
Yeah.
And I think in America, we've got a lot of churches with great theology, great teaching.
Lots of programs,
but I think we could grow in prayer. And, I say that to myself included. I say that to our church. We could grow in the area of prayer. But I think when we start praying sacrificially, I think God will make changes that none of us could even imagine, none of us could make happen. We can't trust, obviously, as we know, in electing the right people. It's good to elect believers. It's good to elect those that understand the difference between unrighteousness and righteousness, and we should do that. But yet, even at the end of the day, they can't change the direction, the course of our country is going right now. And the only place we have to go is to go to the Lord in prayer.
Okay, well, it's a wonderful outreach. It is called America Prays, and a particular chapter here, America Prays Washington. Dennis Grode, the leader, the servant there, a volunteer with this. How do people get in touch with what you're doing, Dennis?
Well, there are a couple of ways. Like I say, we're not sophisticated. I do not have a web page, if you will, specifically in the state of Washington. But if you do go to americaprays.org.
Well, I see Washington Prays here.
There is a page there for Washington Prays there. You can connect with there's actually a place for you to inquire, and they'll connect you with me.
Okay.
I also have a local Facebook page. You can look there, and you can connect me, direct message me there. And I can
Dennis Grode.
Yep, exactly.
Grode,
Yes.
Dennis Grode, and the local page here is washingtonprays.org, and the national website is americaprays.org.
Yeah, exactly.
Very important to pray for our community, our country, each other, and pray, like you say, sacrificially and as much as possible. I agree with you that it's the one aspect of what we're involved with that needs more attention.
Absolutely. And if you're a pastor and you'd like to see your church involved, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'd love to connect with you and maybe build a relationship with your pastor. I meet with pastors one-on-one. This movement's oftentimes travel at the speed of relationship, and so I'm just trying to connect with pastors, share the vision. It's not my idea. It's not America Prays' idea to pray. It's God's. Isaiah 56 says, "My house will be a house of prayer for all peoples." It's missional. It's what we're all called to be doing. So it's not something out of the normal, but we need to make it normal.
Okay, find out more again at washingtonprays.org. Thank you for telling us about this wonderful outreach, Dennis. Dennis Grode.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mark, for allowing me to share.